everyone. This is Victoria Passarella. Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to the Italian American Leadership Network podcast. This is our first episode, so if everyone just be nice. We're figuring things out, so you get to kind of look back on this one day and be like, wow, that's where they started from. I'm very excited to be here with someone that we're going to learn a lot more about. Just a little bit about me and the Italian American Leadership Network. It's a new organization that is meant to be a place for Italian Americans to come together and share information, share knowledge, particularly in the context of professional development. So whether that is how to apply to graduate school, how to do an internship, how to do an interview, to other types of things like, do you know how to make a podcast? Things like that. Just being able to reach out to people and then there'll be a resource for you so we could all support each other. And we have other things going on for the high school level, the college level. So it's really, really exciting. So if you check out our website, you'll be able to learn more, and then you can follow this entrepreneurial venture that we're doing on our social media account. So it'd be awesome if you want to go there and just say hi to us. Okay. I'm Victoria Passarella. I am the founder of the organization, and I am so excited to have things starting to be up and running so that way I can communicate with all of you and you can all meet each other. I was super motivated to not only start this organization, but to also have a podcast so that way we could all get to know different people within our community, learn from them, listen to their stories, and kind of see a lot of things that we might have in common, similar challenges, similar values, to be able to relate to each other, and just learning about kind of what that person's going through and learn from each other. Okay. So Christina, do you want to introduce yourself and then we'll kind of get into it?
Yes, of course. Well, first, of course, I have my espresso, right? Always for a nice conversation. You can't have it without, right?
Always have
Black
that.
with 2 sugars. Black with 2 sugars, that's it. My mom makes fun of me. She goes, you don't put no milk? I'm like, no, black, 2 sugars, that's it. Nice and strong, right? That's all right, so
that's why you're a morning person, because you're just awake. I'm like, that's why. Now I understand.
That's it. 5:30. I'm up before the birds. That's it. My espresso in my hand. That's it. I'm all set. So anyway, my name is Christina Sagos. I was born and raised in Franklin Square on Long Island in New York. I currently go to Adelphi University. I just finished my first year. And so on my mother's side, I have immigrant grandparents, and they came here in the year 1967. And they came in hopes of pursuing the American dream for their family. They want a better life for their children, their future grandchildren, because they know that if they were to stay in Italy, they wouldn't have that same opportunity. So they just came, they took a leap of faith, and I admire them in that way. Like, ever since I was a little kid, I've been called an old soul in the young body, because at family events, I was never at the little table with the little kids. I was always walking around to the adults table with my nonna, her cousins, sister-in-laws, always asking questions about their experience and always wanting to learn more about why they came here and their struggles. And I was always so proud because they've always taught me, the value of hard work and being strong. Because if we think about it, like, the year 1967, there's no technology, there's no FaceTime, there's no way for you to be in contact with your family across the sea. And they came not knowing the language, having nothing, and they're able to, provide for us. So I've always had this inspiration, this motivation to kind of just be so proud of my family. And I just want to share that experience with others. And it's nice for everyone to, come together to talk about it, because no matter what region of Italy you're from, we all share similar experience. And I think it's just great. I wouldn't trade my culture for the world.
I love it. I love it. And for everyone, Christina is being modest. She is the intern for the Italian American Leadership Network. So all the stuff that you see going on, she's been assisting with and super passionate about everything and super, doing an amazing, amazing,
Thank
amazing
you. Thank
job
you so
with
much.
everything. So Christina is involved in all different things. And
Thank you,
we
Victoria.
wanted to use this as an opportunity to have the very first podcast not be someone from kind of the external world, but start right with the people who are involved with the organization. So and I love to learn about different people at different stages in their life. I'm like, what better way to start out the podcast series with an Italian American college student, just to kind of get a sense of like, what things are like for you and like what's going on. And I will say this too, that Christina went to the same high school as me, so it's just it's all interesting. So I personally am very excited to talk to her about her experiences, because she went to the same high school.
Thank you.
Okay, great. So I'm going to ask a few questions. We won't necessarily get through them all. We can jump off to other topics. But just to kind of get us started, can you tell us a little bit about where your family is from?
Okay. So my family, they are from Bari, which is a region in Puglia, southern Italy, in a town called Conversano. And I wish I could go there one day. I'm in hopes when this virus is done, I can go there. So yeah, so they actually, my grandparents, they went to school together when they were really, really little. So they've known each other their whole life. So yeah, that's where they're from, southern Italy.
Wow, very, very nice. Yeah, and this was not a plan, but my family is also Bades on my mother's side.
We're like the same.
So weird. I'm
We're
from
paisans.
it's so weird. And that's how like I knew. It's like it was like that blood memory. Blood memory is like, you send something. It's like that's what it is. I'm from 3 different regions
Mm-hmm.
in southern Italy, but definitely
Oh, which other ones? Are you from Naples, Calabria?
I'm from Sicily, and
Okay.
my father's from Basilicata. He's from Potenza, so it's south of Naples.
Oh,
So
we're all close. We're all family. That's it.
yeah, it's all southern Italy. It's funny, like if you look at a map of like where because my dad was born in Italy. If you
Mhm.
look at a map of where my dad is directly from and like where my mom's family is from in Barry, like it's not that far. It's technically different regions, but
Mhm.
it's like right near each other. And
Oh,
I'm like,
wow.
even if you did it, but they met in Brooklyn. So I'm like, even if you didn't meet there, you might have ended up meeting anyway. Like it's just shifted
That's
around.
amazing. I love that. See, us Italians, you always find a way to come back together. That's it.
It's so funny. It's just like, how did we? I was talking to someone yesterday, and he um is buddies as well, and I was just like, this
We
is
have to find each other. That's it. There's not many of us. We gotta get together when we can. Stay
and
strong.
I know, and the other intern working with us, Julia. Shout out to
Yes.
Julia.
Julia, hello. Hello from
She's she's watching this like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, she's probably like, stop.
She's
We love her.
she's also buddies too. She's buddies and Sicilian like me, and it's just funny. Like none of this was a plan. Like,
Oh, can I have a side note? Her family's also from the same town. Conversano is my family. So we're just narrowing it down, like step by
wow.
maybe cousins, probably. Probably gonna find that out somewhere down the line.
None of that was planned. That was not in the job description, by the way. I don't want anyone to be
You're
like,
not that age, you can't work.
no, it's not. That's
Good stuff.
so anyway, that's where they're from. Okay. And then another question. So on their journey
Mhm.
to the US,
Mhm.
what would you say kind of their motivation was for coming to the US? And what types of support systems did they have
Mhm.
coming to the US?
Well, hearing stories from my nana and, talking to her and asking her all these questions. So she basically told me that the main reason why that they end up coming here was because, mostly, economic reasons, and I think my nonno's sister, I think she already came here before. So he already had like some family here. And I think the intention was that because my nono had three siblings, and I think they were all gonna end up coming to America. So that was like their support system, their family coming together here. But basically, it was because they knew they wanted a family one day, and they, saw the economic, what was going on in Italy, and they knew that if they stayed there, they wouldn't have the same opportunity if they were coming to America, because they heard all these things about, America, the land of opportunity, and like a lot of their friends, everyone was coming here, so they decided to up and leave. They got married in Italy, and they came like not even a couple months later. And their honeymoon was basically the boat ride here, the 7-day trip. That was like kind of like so, and they came, and, I asked my mom, I said, well, what feelings did you have? Like, so, I mean, like, I know that maybe because her husband's family was coming here, not her family. So her family, and to this day, like her sister and their brother, they're still in Italy. She's always been here alone, just
Wow.
with her. So I asked her, I said, but like, what were your feelings coming like to a whole new country, like not knowing the language, having basically like no family besides her husband, her husband's family. And she told me, she goes, Christina, like obviously I was scared, like how anyone would be. But she said that she was mostly excited. So my mind, I'm like, I get anxious about all these little things, and she's coming across the whole ocean, and she's just excited. I'm like, what? So now, like, I stopped. I'm like, no, what do you mean you're excited? Like what? And then she's like, well, like, I'm excited because I knew that my life now, because she was like in her like mid-20s when she came. She knew that her life from that day on was just gonna be better. She goes, she's, very into her Catholic faith. She always believed that, you know, that God was always watching over her, and she knew that, as long as I was with my husband, like I would be okay. She wasn't scared. Like she's like that. She's not worried about things like that. That's what I really admire about her. So we both teared up because she told me as the boat passed the Statue of Liberty, it's almost like that scene from The Godfather when Vito Corleone's like he's
Love it.
looking, he's like looking up at the statue and like he's like a little
Best
kid,
scene.
right? That scene, it's almost like I wish I can go back in time, be like a little bird, and like watch like my nono's face as they're staring up at the statue, and the words that she told me, and I quote, she was just like, ah, like she's like I made it, and she was like from that moment, like it was like everything, like she just felt like overwhelmed with like joy and peace, like she knew that this is where she was meant to be. And she was like, I don't know, like it's just like the feeling she had, she can't even like put into words. And she was crying and I'm crying and like we were just like it was just like such like a beautiful like experience to share with your nana that like like hearing that like you can read about it in history textbooks, you can hear about it from documentaries, but hearing about it from your own flesh and blood, one on one at the kitchen table is a whole another experience in itself. So it was just like amazing hearing her talk about it. And then she's like, when we came, she was, treated very, differently. So like for her, because she had no siblings, she had her support system was her husband, she had to lean on him and her husband's family. So that's really was her support. And they lived in Corona, Queens. It's not far from Astoria. That's where my grandparents lived for a little bit before they ended up moving to Long Island, where they started their family because they end up moving to Elmont. It's on the border of Queens, so that's where my mom, my aunt and uncle, that's where they end up living. But just that story is just like it gives me chills. Like I'm actually cold right now. Like on a nice July day, I'm cold from this story. So I love talking about it. It's just amazing. I hope that she's just proud when I can tell her one day of being able to talk about it with you and everyone else who's watching. So
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is a little bit of the
She's
story.
gonna be an influencer. We're gonna make her famous.
Yes, we're gonna make her. She loves that. Oh my gosh, she would love that.
Everyone, like this video, comment on this video, give a shout out to Christina Sagos. She'll appreciate it.
Please.
We'll let her know about all of them.
Yes, thank you.
No, I absolutely love that. And that was in about what year did you say? Like 1967, you said?
Yes, 1967.
Yeah, no, what's so interesting about that, because you said like the 7-day boat ride. And my father is from Italy as well, but he came here when he was like growing up. So he wasn't like but he wasn't a baby. Like he was growing up. He was still a kid. And whenever, not whenever, but like, I've said to well, my father's off the boat, whatever, da, da, da. And I was talking to this person, totally not Italian at all, like the most like American,
You make me laugh.
typical American looking guy. He should have
Right.
had like a cowboy hat, like he was just American. And I said and I didn't mean it like in a mean way. I was just not like I wasn't trying to even be funny, not mean, but like funny. I was just like, yeah, my father's off the boat, like he's from Italy, and he's like, you mean off the plane? And I'm like, what?
What?
He's like,
I
off
don't
the.
understand.
He's like, off the plane, like he came here on the plane. You didn't come here on a boat. And I was just
No
like,
deal.
no, like he legit did, like he didn't. Like I realized like there's just such a disconnect in culture in the sense that like where our families are coming, where they're physically coming from, whether that is the late 1800s, early 1900s, or more recently, it's still a completely different culture than what like mainstream USA is like, and it's also not the Italy that people think of when they think of like touristy things in the north, things like that. So when I said to him, I was like, no, he came here on a boat. Like he was just like, really? Like that's still a thing? Like I like if not going on a boat for like a vacation, but like actually like for like a kind of practical reason. And
Right, right, right.
I realized like, wow, like this person like had no idea like what that culture is like. And that happens when I was working at Columbia University in Manhattan, and that all those types of experiences adding up were what motivated me to start this organization, because I realized by kind of being a fish out of water that wow, like there are these cultural differences that they're there, but they're also so nuanced, so it's like hard to kind of verbalize them. And I was definitely, it was a weird thing because like I am originally from Brooklyn, and then we moved, and I grew up in the same neighborhood as you. Didn't know
Yes.
that. And then but I mean, at least when I was growing up, it was very Italian American community. Like there's very much like an Italian American identity in where we grew up, like where we went to high school, where we are in our, like there's 5 high schools in our school district, and but also throughout Nassau County. And and the thing is like we have like people from all over could be like watching us right now. So Nassau County is right near Manhattan. It's borders Queens. It's one of the highest Italian American communities in general in the country. I believe it's 25% of the population in the Nassau County is Italian American, and the all the high schools in our area teach the Italian language. Like that's just like one of the standard default things that's offered, and advanced Italian and all of that. And I was in a Zoom meeting thing that the Italian American podcast was doing with their new neighborhood community. And for everyone out there, I highly recommend the Italian American
Yes, I love them.
podcast. We love it. Christina and I love it.
Yes.
I sent her different videos, different links to it's not videos, but different links to.
Yeah, they're great. They're amazing.
Yeah.
Very amazing people. Yeah.
Yeah. So I can go on and on and on about how much we love them. They also have a community called the New Neighborhood, which is a Facebook group, and they were doing like these weekly like Zoom hangout meeting type things, and so it's people from all over, and people were talking about how like they didn't have and they didn't have the opportunity to learn Italian in school, and this wasn't someone that was from like I was gonna say the middle of nowhere, which I guess is like showing, by the way, like how like New York centric and I am, and I apologize. It's like a New York thing that we do. I was in, like the Midwest or something like that, meaning like a place not near us. Every Italian in the Midwest right now is like, what? Yeah, very New York centric. But it wasn't that. It was the person was from Jersey. talking about it. And I was like, it was one of those things. It was like, oh wow, like that was surprising to me. It was almost like my own kind of ignorance, like, oh, this isn't just a thing that there's all these Italian classes. So I kind of grew up in, well, I grew up in that type of community, and then also being the fish out of water experience with like the Manhattan Columbia community. I was like, okay, like there's definitely unique different things going on here. So yeah, so I was just, when you said that they came here on a boat, I'm like, thank you. Thank you.
Because they did. That's the truth. They didn't come by train. You can't go across it. It's not the Polar Express. You gotta go.
No, because like I was like, I'm like, do you know how much expensive a plane ticket is? Like a European US plane ticket for a whole family? I'm like, my family did not have
I
that kind
know.
of money. Like,
That's why they're coming to America.
The money was exactly. Why do you think they were coming to America?
That's why they come in here.
If they could afford the plane ticket, they wouldn't have had to come here to begin with. It wasn't.
Well, when they went back to visit, then they took a plane. That they took because they had the money. They didn't go by boat.
That's a really good point. Yeah, like it's like my dad never went back on a boat. He would go back on a plane. That's a really, really good point.
Right?
It's like you're leaving, like I'm leaving on a boat, but I'm gonna be back on a plane.
To show them, like, look, see, I made it. I come back on a plane. Fancy. I'm coming back fancy.
I didn't even, that is so, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, they didn't have that kind of money. You're lucky they didn't swim over. Like, are you?
Oh my God. Was it cold? Was that water cold, right? They probably would have froze to death coming here.
The Atlantic Ocean, like, but what's so funny is that, like, my father, we're going to get back to your questions, but, like,
yeah. We go on tangents all the time.
Oh, by the way, welcome to this podcast, because that's just happened. If we didn't go on tangents, though, like, if it was just, like, very linear.
Right. Yeah, like, I got to sit up straight and be very,
right.
like.
It wouldn't be an Italian-American leadership network. Like, that would just be, like, that wouldn't be, it would be like, they aren't Italian, these people.
We'd be so hypocritical. It'd be like a disgrace to our ancestors. Like, what do you mean you're not going to talk about things? Like, what do you mean you don't talk? What do you mean you answer our questions? You don't have fun? Like, come on.
I know, and like I think that's a really good point that to kind of bring up now is that with the Italian American Leadership Network, I mean, like we throw around words like culture and values, and when I'm saying feeling like a fish out of water and things like that, and it's like, okay, what does that mean in like a concrete kind of tangible way? And something that I've noticed, and I definitely want to talk to you more too about kind of your own experiences, is that there, for a lot, I mean, of course, everything we're saying is a generalization, and there's no right way or wrong way of being Italian American at all. But there's certain patterns, and one of them I would say is the fact that we tend to be much more expressive and opinionated, and just kind of just like open compared to the like mainstream U.S. culture. And because our organization does focus on professional development, and it's also a personal development, but that's the whole thing. Understand that there is a fusion. It's not like, okay, I'm this person in a suit and, you know, this cold way of being, but it's like, okay, but what are your values, and what do you think about family, and what do you feel about work, and how do these things impact each other, and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, it's an organization where you can have a question about how to network or how to interview, but do that in a really laid back way, and being able to say something like, and we'll get into this too later with your questions, but being able to say something like, you know what, like, regardless of where someone is in different stages, but of their career, but it could be something like, you know what, no one in my family has ever gone to graduate school before. I'm embarrassed to ask about it. I'm not sure how to apply. Or it could be something like, my family has always owns like family businesses, but I'm the first person to want to do more like a kind of office type of white collar type of job, but I don't know how to network. Like, how does that even work? And being able to ask those questions and not feel like you're going to be judged and like, why don't you already know that or whatever. So I say that all to say that's why we go on tangents and stuff, because we
Yes.
are authentic selves.
Yes, that's
Um,
right.
you
That's
could
right.
be, you can embrace your Italian Americanness and your professional stuff. We don't separate
Exactly. All in one. That's what makes us great.
it's like we're just like when people talk like work-life balance, like it just kind of like
It's
naturally,
just naturally kicks in. It's
yeah,
just
we're just like very open people. So that's what that's about.
beautiful.
Okay, so you kind of touch upon this a little bit, but when they came to this country, what
Mhm.
types of adversity did they go through? You said that she was treated differently.
Yeah, so my nana told me this story that she went to the store with her sister-in-law, which is um her husband's brother's wife, and so the workers knew that they were Italian, they can just tell, like their accent, the way they were talking. Um, and, I don't know if anyone's familiar with the word guinea. That's kind of like a derogative term to call Italians. So she walked in, and the workers were like laughing at her, and they were calling her that name. Like, let's say, like there were two employees, they were talking to each other. They were like saying, "Oh, look at those guineas." I don't know. They were saying something along those lines, and they were like laughing. And my nana like felt so uncomfortable because like here she is like going to like the store for like the very first time in a new country she's never been in before, and she's like being laughed at for no reason. She just simply walked in the door. Like she didn't do anything, and she didn't even know she just kept hearing them say that word, but she didn't really know what it meant. So she went home and she told my nonno the story, and he was already familiar with the word, he knew, and he like looked at her, he's like, I don't want you to go into that store again. He's like, he told her like, what that means, and she cried and cried because she was so upset because in the beginning she felt very discriminated. She felt very like, she just didn't feel comfortable. She felt like people were always like making fun of her, so that was one out of many examples that she told me of things that she went through. Even she used to get like when Koreans, she was like outside, like one time, like people were throwing like empty glass bottles at her, and she was actually pregnant too with my uncle, and like it was just some stories, like it's very, like hearing those what she went through. It's almost like I can't get upset if I can't tie my shoe right because this woman is getting called names in the store. Like every time like something happens to me like that, I'm just like, listen, none of got called these names.
Right.
I just can't worry about this right now. Like it's okay. I can type, so it's just, but those stories that I'm sure many, whether you're Italian or any other culture, I'm sure everyone's been through something similar, so but yeah, that's something that she went through, you know.
Yeah. And I think it's so important for people now
Mhm.
to be talking more and more about things like this, because I think that something that Italian Americans in particular did kind of just, I think, as a coping strategy, kind of, was that they didn't really talk about these experiences. They kind of
Mhm.
kept them to themselves and um, didn't necessarily talk to their kids about it. It was kind of like just don't acknowledge it. And then they would move into like ethnic enclaves to kind of like almost like protect each other from situations like you just said
Mhm.
your grandma went through, and then just like not acknowledge those things. And I understand like emotionally why people would want to do that, but then the challenge is that then the larger society doesn't like understand like what the experience is like to be an Italian American, and then as like the kids of those people, then it's like, okay, like, well, if you really want to understand your culture and kind of where you are in all of this, it's like
Mhm.
you it's great to know kind of where you're coming from, because and the reality is this, like the same way that we are the children of them, that family, not that family, those people who were like saying those things
Mhm.
to her in the store, and the other situation when she was pregnant, um they had kids,
Exactly.
meaning like just because people don't say stuff out loud doesn't mean that it doesn't happen. And
Mhm.
um when I when I was at Columbia, like there was definitely like, microaggressions and like thinking it was okay to say certain things that was like really offensive, things like that. So I just think like being able to kind of share that and be like, oh, you went through that, I went through that, like my family experienced that. And it also shows too, like why a lot of people coming from our background kind of maybe were scared to kind of step out of their comfort zone and maybe do different types of jobs or things like that, because it was like, well, if I'm going to be the only person and maybe people discriminate against me, I'm just going to like stay in my lane. And as a result of that, then like their children like are like, well, okay, cool, but like now it's like maybe I don't want to own, I'm thinking about my family, like maybe I don't want to own a bakery or like continue the family business, like maybe I want to do something else, but like that it just becomes extra scary because it's like, well, people haven't before, you haven't done that
Mm-hmm.
before. So yeah, that's really
Yeah. No, I
valuable.
agree. I agree. That's very true. I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also respect what you're saying about uh like, okay, she went through this, like if she went through this, I could deal with it. Like I totally get that. I totally get that. So the next time your Uber is late, be like, all right, well, my grandma was on a boat and people threw bottles at her. I think I'll be fine. Like it's just
My
like,
therapy strategies. I don't know my breathing techniques. I'll be like, think about Nana. I feel like you brought up the bakery. I've been working at a bakery in my neighborhood almost 4 years, an Italian bakery. So it's so cool because like, I get to like, be around Italian pastries all day. I'm surprised I'm not 500 pounds right now. But it's so fun because I have customers come in and they're old school Italian. I hear their stories too. Like it's like the connection, but like sometimes like I'll drop something like whatever, I'll mess up and I'm like, oh my god, and I'm like, wait, relax, hold on, think about the boat. Look at mission like the Statue of Liberty, think about it. I'm okay. It's so funny,
we
but
should
it's true.
make we should make like social media posts like that. Like we should post that like on our Instagram, like memes and stuff of like we'll talk to Julia, we'll figure it out. But
Yeah, yeah.
like what would Nona do like in this situation?
And everyone look at the Statue of Liberty like this, like what does she do?
Right.
Like breathe like yoga, like a spa. Like we should have
Right.
Italian American like yoga sessions themed. Have like the Statue of Liberty like right in the center and have everyone like on a mat like they came here 7 days. Breathe in. I don't know. You know what I'm saying? Like I get creative.
That's amazing. That's
Oh man, the tears are real.
oh my god.
Oh, you gotta get creative.
That's yeah, because the same way that like people also like don't understand that like we're not yelling when they think
Oh.
that we're yelling or like calm down. It's like what? Like
It's my
nothing.
natural voice. So I'm probably yelling.
Like I'm not even mad. Like what are you talking about? Like I'm
I'm mad,
agreeing.
I'm quiet.
Like this is me agreeing. Like what are you talking about? Like nothing happened. So I'm really sorry. Like I'm really upset that we were in a fight yesterday. It's like when? Like what fight happened?
It's so weird. That's so funny. I've had that so many times. And when you're in a restaurant, like I'm eating, like, I have a friend who she's, very like, Italian American, like, me. So we're like in a restaurant, we're talking, but like it's like the volume is like really up there. And like everyone's like sitting down, they drop their forks, they look at us, and I'm like looking at them like what do we do? Like we didn't do anything. We're just talking. And like, the waiter had to come over and you have to quiet down. Quiet down. I'm just talking. What do you mean quiet down? I get so
No,
confused.
it was I've had that experience again in Manhattan at a restaurant near Central Park, and I was gonna say the name of the restaurant, but like maybe I don't know. But it was very like a very kind of just like I want to say like very traditional kind of like waspy like white Anglo-Saxon like very kind of like traditional type of vibe and everything.
Got you.
And it was myself, my mom, her like friend slash coworker, and her little kid.
Mhm.
Like she was like in first grade, and they were all from our town too. And we were just having dinner, and like the restaurant was like almost empty, like there wasn't a lot of people. But like next to us, there was a table of like it I'm like, are these people even real people? Like, is this a real family? Like, it was like parents and kids. I think there was like 3 kids, but they were all like, the kids were all in like pastel collared shirts and like khakis and things like, and it wasn't a holiday. Like, I get it if it's a holiday, it was just like a random weekend, but they were all just very like stiff. And the little girl, the girl in the first grade that we were with, she was so adorable, like so cute, so nice, and not
Right, right.
and not in any way like being a problem or anything like that. She was just like hanging out with us, and like she was just kind of, and she was the only kid at the table. So at one
Oh,
point
it's
she got
me.
like,
It's me.
yeah, she was just like hanging out, like it was, she wasn't, but at one point she got like the metal like bread basket thing,
Mhm.
and she put it on her head. Like, she wasn't like throwing the bread across the restaurant. Like, she wasn't throwing it at that family, but she just had like the bread thing on her head. And we were just, I mean, we knew it. It was just like, all right, like as long as she's whatever. And
Busy.
then that family like turned around and stared at us and gave us like the dirtiest looks. It was unbelievable. It was like complete contrast. Um,
Gosh.
so and it was just like one of those like little things where it's kind of like we just, things are just different. Like we are just
Yeah, there's a
different.
difference, There's nothing bad. It's just that's just it's just different. That's just,
Yeah.
wow. That's just
I mean,
that's
I could see
so.
if she was like throwing knives across the room or
Yeah,
something.
that obviously,
That's not what was happening. It was like, it's like what? Anyway, lots of
Yeah,
stories.
yeah.
Um,
No, we go on for hours.
okay, so this is actually a perfect transition because that was kind of like naturally my next question for you
Mhm.
is that do you feel that growing up in a relatively, compared to like the rest of the country, um Italian American community has kind of shown you how Italian Americans are unique? So Nassau County, compared to the rest of the country, has a bigger Italian American population. The high school that we both went to,
Mhm.
things like that. So I was just wondering, by growing up that way, did you did you see things that you're like, oh wow, that is unique, that from the community?
Mhm. Um, well, yeah, like you said earlier, like Franklin Square is very predominantly Italian. So, like growing up, like in that, the high school, like, everyone's background is Italian American. So we all kind of like had this understanding. So anything that I would do or say, kind of like everyone else was doing and saying, so it kind of felt very natural. So I didn't think that being Italian American was unique until I would leave that town. Let's say, if I went out to Suffolk, or even if we would go on vacation to like Pennsylvania or a different state, and like I would see how like other people would act, and it was just like different. And I was like, am I doing something wrong? Am I? And then I would go back, when you go back home in Franklin Square, Nassau County, like, and then I would see, oh, okay, like it's just how we're brought up. It's just different. So, and like, there's so many examples that we can say about it, but depending on where you live, it's the culture of the town, and that's just different no matter where you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting. You mentioned Suffolk, and again, for other people watching this that might not know, the area, um, people throw around saying like Long Island as if it's like
Hmm.
this one monolith,
Right.
but it's not. So the same way that there's a difference between Brooklyn and the Bronx or Staten Island or Queens, there's also Nassau County, Suffolk County, which are the 2 counties that make up what people say is Long Island. Long Island actually isn't a like governmental district. It's just kind of, people say everything on the other side of Queens, basically.
Yes. Or that
Uh,
long part.
yeah, but it's like, but technically on Long Island, Long Island is Brooklyn, Queens, Nassau, Suffolk, but
Hmm.
because Brooklyn and Queens is under the jurisdiction of New York City, that half of the island is New York City, and then our part,
Right.
the other rest of it's Long Island.
Exactly.
So I just say that kind of for people who are like, what are they
Yes.
talking about? Like, I don't know what this is. So, but no, but it's really interesting that you say that, because I always had that experience and still do. Even going to Suffolk County, which is like the next county over, not to say that there's not Italian Americans there. Of course, there's Italian Americans there, but it is less concentrated. It's less concentrated, so you don't, as a result, the culture isn't as,
Different.
specific. Yeah. So I've absolutely experienced that as well, and that's not going to the Midwest. That's it's going over
Right
local.
here.
Yeah, it's right here. So it just shows that like there is such a unique difference that you see very quickly.
Exactly.
And I totally agree with you about growing up. I didn't realize how unique my growing up experience was because of where I grew up. So for me, like I said, like my dad came from Italy, but a lot of the parents growing up, they're either their parents or also from Italy, or their grandparents. And then also you have the mix of like the late 1800s, early 1900s, like wave, like the peak wave of the Italian American culture when you think of Ellis Island, things like that. So like on my mom's side, that's like, I call that side like the Brooklyn Italian side, where like they came over more around then and they lived in Little Italy and that. And then on my dad's side it's more of the more recent immigration.
Gotcha.
And in our community, that was both there. So it wasn't shocking to have a father who was an immigrant. One of my really great friends currently, we went to high school together, and her father was also from Italy as well. And it was just like, it wasn't a weird thing. It was just like, oh yeah, like that happens.
Natural. Yeah,
like,
just
happens, like, whatever.
Normal.
So like that was like a natural thing. And then like even things with like food and like things like that, like there's so, like you said, like there's so many different examples. And when I then went away to college though, and I remember my first year of undergrad, which was like in New York's Hudson Valley, so not around this area, and at like the big like dining hall, whatever, they were doing like Italian night, and I was
okay.
I was like, what is this? Like, what's Italian night? Like, what does this even mean? And I was just like, and they were like advertising it and stuff, and they had like decorations, like Italian decorations, and I wasn't offended or anything like that. I'm like, we're a theme? Like there's like I didn't know you can go to the party store and like pick that.
We're a theme. I love it.
Like I didn't know that was like, oh, like today's like National Pancake Day. Today's Italian night. I was like, that's a thing?
Did you go?
So I went. I didn't go because it was Italian night. Like I went because like that's where the food was.
Okay, there you go.
So it was
now
like,
we know the reason.
But like it was all decorated. I'm like, okay. But like, I mean, in general though, prior to that, as an Italian American who loves food, like I take food very seriously.
I smell the broccoli raw upstairs already, actually. I smell it, the sausage. I'm like, where are these smells coming from?
That's so funny.
Like, look it up.
That's so funny. Like as an Italian American, that was another thing too, was like in general, I'll go back to the Italian night situation.
Yeah.
But the idea that like the food was terrible. Like the food, like the dining hall food was really, really terrible. And I was like, I can't eat this. So I ended up eating like they had like cereal and like breakfast, like things like that. But I wasn't like, I was like, so I completely had to just eat like kind of very simple things. So that was like prior to Italian night, because I was like, this food's like disgusting. So the same cooks or whatever made the Italian night food.
The same cooks?
Like, they didn't order out. It was like the same. It was
like a kid. It's like a nice hall or something.
No. It was like just the dining hall. And it was just like.
Oh my God.
I literally, I want to, like, I was just like, what is this? It was
What
like
do you serve?
it wasn't even, I couldn't even like, what is that supposed to be? Like it was like um it was things like just like pasta, chicken parmesan, things like
Oh,
that.
man, they
But
ruined the chicken farm. Oh my God, please! I genuinely like. I'm so concerned about this.
like when you look at it, you're like, that's not what it is. Like that's not, you think it is something that's not what it is. Like that's not at all. So I was just like, bleh. Like it was just absolutely gross. And it, but I bring it up to say that that experience had such an impact on me because it was my first year of college. I'm coming from a community in a high school that's like the 180 of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then on there, and it was like early, it was like first semester, and it was like one of those things where you're like, oh, there is something unique about us. And I don't just mean the food. For me, it was the food in the sense of like, people don't even know my food, don't even know my culture, that they think this is good. But so it was that. There was that part. I was just like, oh, you don't know. Like, you don't know where you're eating
I
stuff.
guess we're spoiled. I guess we're just spoiled at home.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. But kind of like bigger picture, what it taught
Mm-hmm.
me was that like kind of like I was saying before, like, oh, like we're a theme. Like there's like this othering of like, oh, like those people, that
Mm-hmm.
culture. So that really was like a very transformative experience for me because I was like, oh wow, like there is something about unique about me and my culture. Um so then on the flip, not the flip side, but like now for you,
Mm-hmm.
I was saying flip side because of like high school or college.
Right.
Um, now that you are at college, that being said, compared to like my experience where I went like um, upstate New York,
Mm-hmm.
I can't like, like other
Upstairs.
people are watching this. It's not like just us, but like, what does that mean? Upstate New York, which is very
Right.
different than the New York metro area.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what has your experiences been like as a college student, and how does it compare from a cultural perspective compared to like high school and things like that?
Right. Well, it's so funny because I know you went away to school, but for me, I knew I wanted to commute to school, so I chose a school that was only 5 minutes from my house because, like growing up Italian, like I'm very close to my family and my parents. Like, what do you mean you have to go away to college? Like, like you could just, you can go right here. So I ended up choosing Adelphi, and I see like I'll, like you said, they had like Italian, theme night. Like I'll go and like, I actually went in the dining halls once because my friend, she dorms, and I went to eat and they had like spaghetti and meatballs. They had like pizza, and like everyone's like, oh, they're like, oh my God, Italian food, that they're going like crazy. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm like spoiled at home because like my mom, she's making all these like chicken parm and chicken franchise and broccoli rabe, all these like really big meals. And I'm going here and having like pizza and the spaghetti, sauce is so dry. And I'm like, oh my God, like I just like started to appreciate like, wow, like, how I eat at home and everything. But, I see the difference, and I always say like in high school, you're a small fish in a small pond. Like everyone that goes to your school is your neighborhood. So I lived in a tiny neighborhood. Everyone in school mostly had that background. But going to college, I'm a small fish in a big ocean. Adelphi has students not only from Franklin Square, but all over the US, many different countries. So it's very diverse, all different backgrounds. So like actually going to the school and like, going to different classrooms, like I started to realize, wow, like being Italian American is unique. Like I feel not like an outcast, but I can feel that like the way I think and how I am is different. And naturally, I tended to kind of cling to students in the class that I met that just happened to have an Italian background. Not that I knew prior, just
Mm-hmm.
by having conversations with them versus other people, we just kind of connected. And then after talking, I'm like, wait, are you Italian? They're like, yeah. And I go, oh, that's why we get along so well. So naturally, like a lot of my friends have the same background as me, not because I chose to, just because, at first talking is just that's just how we kind of just connected. I just happened natural. I guess because talking to them reminded me of being in high school and like of my neighborhood. So, but yeah, so I would definitely say going to college, I see it's like a, like you said, a 360 of growing, like going to school in your neighborhood, because now when you're out there in the, I guess the real world, and seeing that, there's tons of different people that have different experiences, and I can really distinguish between like being Italian American versus being like just the mainstream
Mhm.
American. So I can really see that. In high school, I couldn't see it as much because everyone kind of had that, not everyone, but most of us had that background. So it's just kind of like the norm. But in college it's different. Like I would, bring my own lunch to school, and like, I would bring like the heated containers of like leftover chicken cutlet. I would make it into a sandwich, or like my mom, let's say it was a Monday, on Sunday she had like leftover pasta, so I would bring that and I would like eat it like on the bench or something, like, before class. And like people are going to the dining halls with like getting the sushi and then getting all those other things. And I'm over here like trying to find a spot, like trying to make sure my pasta's warm, trying to eat it like outside, like, so just like something like I would do, and like people might think that's weird, but then like I had like a friend, so she grew up the same way, and she was just laughing at me because she was like, I would do the same thing, like, so it's just kind of like, like, or during class, like I would like pick up the phone, call my nana on my free break, or I literally like was on FaceTime with my mom during my break outside because like I just missed her, even though I commute, I still missed her, like, so it was just, I guess, like little things, because I guess growing up Italian American, like family is everything, and like we take pride in like the little things. So I guess going to school, I kind of like brought that part of me there, you know, and I can just see like how much more I thought I was just thankful, but going to college, I was like, whoa, I'm not just thankful. I'm like over the moon, so proud and so grateful of my culture, because I saw how like unique I was in a setting where it's not everyone is like that, so I just kind of felt so much more prideful, so you can really see the difference when you're in a different setting as opposed to
Yeah.
being in a setting where everyone is like you. So I guess, if that answers your question, that's kind of
Yeah,
my
no,
experience. Yeah.
absolutely. And it's so funny they were saying about like being on like FaceTime with your grandma, like on your
Yeah.
breaks and stuff.
Hmm.
Like when I was working and living in Manhattan for 10 years. Not that Manhattan's like that far away, but
Hmm.
it's not like right by your parents. And and then I decided for a lot of like I was gonna say for a lot of different reasons, but a lot of the reasons having to do with like what we're talking about today. I eventually wanted to move, and I was working at Columbia University, which was an awesome experience, but not for me in many ways. So I was just like, okay, like I wanna go back there. Um, and Adelphi University is right there, and that all worked out, and that's great. But the reason why I bring it up is because when I was like in transition, like in moving transition, I was like going from apartment to apartment. So like I was living with in my mom's house, and Adelphi is literally 5 minutes from my mom's house, and I was living there, and like every once in a while, like we would like go out to lunch together.
Oh, that's so cute.
It
I
was
love that.
like once a week, like
Oh,
we go out to lunch, and I was just like, I'm gonna see you later, but like,
I love
how have
that.
you
I
been since,
love that.
like how have you been since breakfast? Like it's just and that's just something like, and that's just something that like other people would be like, well, it's not like Christmas. Like, why do you have to see your family? Like people who are
Oh,
like, oh, I see my family for like Christmas and Thanksgiving. Like I literally don't understand that.
I don't understand. I feel like I would be so like, I don't know, like the guilt. First of all, the guilt I would
I
get.
know, I know,
But like a side note that's related to this, like, let's say if I go out to you with like a friend or something, and like, I have to check in with my mom every half hour. I have to make sure I text her like I'm okay. Like she always knows that she has a tracker on my phone, so she knows everywhere I go. But I don't lie anyway. I tell her. But like I have to check in and text every half hour. But there was this one time. So I'll give you two examples. So like one time I went with a friend who was Italian American like me, and then one time I was out with a friend who wasn't. So just so you can compare the two scenarios. So the time I was out with my friend who was Italian American, her mom's the same way, check in with me every half hour. So there was this one time, I guess I forgot. Oh my God, don't ever forget. So my phone was in my bag, and I don't know, it was on silent, so I didn't hear. So I guess like 2 hours goes by. Apparently, I checked my phone, and on my phone were like 30 messages all from my mom, like hello, hello, and then like she goes from hello to capital letters hello to question marks to angry emoji faces, and then I have like 20 missed calls, and then I see that's it, you're grounded, don't ask no more, you're not going, and I'm like, oh my god, what did I do? And then like my friend, she's laughing, she was, oh my god, like, oh my gosh, she feels so bad for me because she would do the same thing. So now scenario two, I'm out with my friend who was not brought up like that. Like she barely texts her mom. She's like, mom doesn't even know where I am. I go, she doesn't know where you am. Does she think you're alive? She goes, yeah, she doesn't know where I am. I don't know. So the same thing happened. I didn't answer my mom's phone call. I didn't answer the message. And I'm like literally sweating. It was like December. I'm like sweating. I was like freaking out. Like, oh my god, like when I get home, it's gonna be the end of it, you know. And my friend's like, well, why are you getting so anxious for? Like, what's the big deal? I go, what do you mean, what's the big deal? You don't understand. When I go home, it's gonna be like death for me. But like, she didn't understand because like, you know, like I'm not saying that like just Italian mothers care about their kids, but I guess the culture of Italians are like, you know, like I feel like a lot of the mothers are very like, you know, on top of it. Like the mother's kind of the center of the family. So maybe in her family, maybe it's not like that. So she just maybe like didn't understand. I don't expect her to understand, but she just didn't get like the what I would have gone through. And she was like, that's no big deal, don't worry. And I'm like panicking. So just to show you how like how I was more uncomfortable around that friend in that scenario because she didn't understand me. But in the first scenario, my friend understood me and she's like, no, I'll call your mom. I'll tell her it was a mistake. You know, like so she like, and I don't know, no, I don't think she did, but you see how like I was more comfortable, like either way I was dying. But in the first case, I felt more comfortable because my friend like understood. I can kind of like tell her. But in the second case, I felt embarrassed to kind of say that my mom called me because she'd be like, you know, you're 19 years old. Why does your mom have to call you for if you're out? But like,
Right.
I don't care if I'm 30. She's still gonna probably call me. You know what I'm saying? So
Right.
just I guess to show you like the difference scenarios of like,
Absolutely, absolutely. And
yeah.
what I love about it is another kind of like big theme with the Italian American Leadership Network is yes, you know, talking about things that like historical things and things
Mhm.
like that, but really always making sure that we bring it back to
Mhm.
modern things that are currently going on, and not just being purely nostalgic for historical stuff, but like how are these types of things impacting people
Right.
present day. And I love the example with your mom because of the text messages.
You know,
I love the idea of like seeing you literally have a documented of like the emotion increasing. And, like you actually see like the different stages. That should be in other social media posts that we make, like in other,
yes.
like the different stages of like an Italian mom freaking
It's like
out. Like,
hello, hello, hello. With like
absolutely. And I like when I'm saying like, you know, things going on modern day, things like that. I mean, this organization is really for everyone, but we
Mhm.
absolutely want to make sure that we bring in the millennial generation and the
Mhm.
Gen Z generation, which I'm a millennial and you're Gen Z. So like to kind of say, okay, are these people going through these different experiences?
Right, right.
But even for myself, like if I'm by myself, my mom doesn't know what I'm doing, so it is what it is. But like if she knows I'm supposed to do one thing, then the next thing, and like and she doesn't like something happened in between, she's just like, you okay, you okay, like it goes from
And
like
now,
now it goes from zero to are you dead, like how did you jump to that?
I think the worst all the time. I always think the worst of
You
everything.
okay, you okay, what's going on? I'm just like, but like statistically, why wouldn't I be though? Like
But we say that, but I'll probably be the same way. You know, I feel like I am the same way. You know, it's just funny when you talk about it. You know.
it's just so weird. I'm just like, yeah, I'm fine. Like it's like I'm just literally now staring at my phone, waiting for you. Like, what is going on? And it either goes from like, I think the difference though is that like for you, it's like increasing in anger. For me, because of the generational difference, like life stage difference, it goes directly to are you dead? It's like I'm not mad at you, but like are you murdered? Like what happened? Like I recently, this is a very recent, like this just happened. I went on a date with someone
Mhm.
that I met on Bumble. But because of the pandemic and stuff, restaurants like aren't open and like things like
Right.
that. Like you can eat outside, but like
Mhm.
whatever.
It's
And like
different. Yeah.
I've been talking to him for months, like throughout the pandemic, and like what I'm like, he's fine. He's like he lives in the town like right next door. Like it's not a big deal. Like it's fine.
Right.
Um, and but I wasn't leaving from my apartment. I was leaving from her house.
Okay. Gotcha.
So she knew I was like getting ready to like go on a date and whatever. So
That's so cute.
so it was just like so awkward for me. And then she's like, as I'm getting ready to leave, she's like, what's his address? What's his name? What's his address? All this stuff. I'm like, I want to know the address. And I was like, first of all, like I'm divorced. Like what? Like I feel like at what point are you gonna be like, it's fine? I was just like,
I
I
need
was
to meet your mother.
I'm like, what are you talking? She's like, I'm not trying to like get in your like, I want you to have a good time. I'm just saying like, what's his address, whatever. So I gave her the address.
Oh, you did? Okay. Good
Yeah, I gave
daughter.
her the name and the address because it wasn't worth fighting. I was just like, whatever. Um, and then and I had Googled the guy, and he's Italian also, like he's like
Okay.
100% Italian. So she liked him already
Oh yeah, that's it. She
before
loves you.
anything. So she was like happy for me, but she was just like on everything. So like I gave her the stuff, but I had Googled him prior just to like, I mean, you should Google anyone just to be like, what's their deal? But when you Google him, like years and years and years ago, he had like DWIs and stuff like that, and was like arrested like because of
Oh.
that. So just be aware of that. So I give her the information. I'm like, I know she's gonna Google him. Like I know she's
Oh,
not.
you told her.
No, I did. I
Oh,
just
you
told her
did.
the name and the address
Oh, okay.
because
Okay,
she's
gotcha,
wanting it for
gotcha.
like for safety reasons.
In case
And
she
then
thinks you're
like,
dead, she knows where to go. Gotcha,
right,
gotcha.
exactly. So like on the way there though, I'm like, she's gonna Google him. I know it. I know it. And I'm like, the arrest is gonna come up from his DWIs. She's gonna know this. And then like my brother was at the house too, like while I was leaving. And my
Right.
brother, like, I thought he was completely indifferent and like not interested in like any of this
Mhm.
at all. But apparently, like, then he went on like Google Maps to be like, okay, like it's not that far. Like, so apparently, I don't. There was a whole like SWAT
Your
team
army.
like waiting for me to come back, and I'm just like, what is going on? This is so weird. Um, but then to make it even like more, so I came home that night. Um, but the guy gave me like food to take home. Like it was
Oh, that's good.
like he made like all Italian food because like there's no restaurants and stuff, so he made it like a restaurant. So
Right.
he made like all this Italian food, like all this stuff, but then like he had extra stuff like for my mom, like bread and like and he's like,
Oh,
I went to the bakery, I got bread for your mom, like this is
he's a
for your mom,
keeper.
like this is for your mom and your brother. I'm like, you're on a date with me. Like, why are you getting family food? And
Wow.
he's like, I got this. He's like, you know the olive oils. But then I saw him again. He's like, you know the olive oils, not the olive oil, the olive spread that you liked.
Oh.
I was like,
Mhm.
yeah. And like it was like this olive. It was so good. And then so I went there for like another date, and he had one. He's like, this is for your mom. I got it for your mom. Like he's like, I went to the store. I got you some extra. You seem to like it. She might like it. I was just like, we
Wow.
haven't even met yet. Like
You totally got shafted. You went right to the
I was like,
mom.
and I think
That's
what else did
funny.
he do? Oh, we got her cannolis too for me to take home.
Oh, I love this.
So I
Love
was just
this.
like, this is hilarious.
This
This is
is so
absolutely
funny.
hilarious.
Wow.
So
See?
I don't know how, I have no idea how we got onto that, but
Every way to Italian woman's heart.
yeah, yeah, I don't know how we got onto that. But I guess what I was saying is like, yeah, so like when I lived in Manhattan and Columbia in particular, I mean, I was often the only, no, I mean, for sure the only Italian American almost always, but even like native New Yorker, like, cause there's people from all over the country,
Right.
all over the world,
Hmm.
um, because the New York metropolitan area and Columbia is a famous school, so there's people from all over,
Hmm.
which is really cool. Of course, like I'm not
Yeah,
knocking it, but
it's
it's
awesome.
purely from a place of like cultural difference that we were talking about with family, like the idea of like I was the odd one out that I wasn't only seeing my family on Christmas and Thanksgiving. Like
Right.
everyone else, it was Christmas and Thanksgiving. Um, and it was like I can't even like articulate it right now because it was like such like a weird shock for me. And they were also building their careers long term that would that would continue to be that way. So it wasn't just like, oh, this is like a temporary thing to get experience and I'm gonna go back. It was like, I don't know, like maybe I'll leave the country, maybe I'll move to a different
Oh, I
state
see.
or whatever. I don't know. I could work here, I could work there, I could work wherever. And
I
I'm
wouldn't
like,
fly.
what? Like I would not like if I got like a job in like across the country, like, and I would
Mhm.
have to just like leave everything. It's like that is not a typical thing that people in our community do, for better or for worse. Like, and that's the thing. Like, and I think that's the thing to also really make like we want to make clear is that we're not. It's not really up for a debate. Like, it's not a conversation of like, is that right or is that wrong? Like, that's not even the point. The point is if you're coming from a culture where people it's not the norm for people to like go far away from their families.
Mhm.
That's just like a fact of how a lot of it is. How does
Right.
that impact you from a professional development level, networking level, like personal development, work-life balance, like all those different things.
Right.
But yeah, that was like huge culture shock to me. Meanwhile, like I was like going home and like visiting my parents and like and they were or like they were visiting me and like things like that. And I was like, no, I wouldn't like I personally I'm like I'm not going to make a like a career for myself that would require me to leave like the New York metro area.
Right.
Um, so that's a big one. I feel like it's a
Yeah.
really big topic that we could talk a lot about.
Yeah. No, it's great.
Okay, so just getting back to my questions that I had for you, because a lot of them kind of go into the next one,
Right.
um,
Right.
like naturally just go into the next one. What does your family do for work, like currently and in the past?
You mean like my parents or like like anyone in my family?
Both, yeah.
Right. Um, so yeah, well my mom's Italian, my dad is actually Greek, so like my grandparents on that side are from Greece, so but still very off the boat. So my dad actually owns a diner in Hicksville. So and my mom it's kind of funny because my mom growing up, you know, in an Italian household, she wanted to have a family of her own, but she wanted to be there 24/7 for her kids. So my mom actually never had like a career goal in mind. Like she did go to college, she went to St. John's, but she didn't even get a degree. She went like for a year, but then she really didn't like college because she's like I can just get, you know, jobs. Like my mom like has a gift to talk, you know, she's you know, so she would like, you know, get like jobs here and there very easily, network with people very easily. It was very, you know, very outgoing. She's very friendly. So and then she had part-time jobs here and there, but once she got married, you know, she ended up just being a stay-at-home mom and she just like absolutely is in love with it. She loves being with us 24/7 and you know, but I'm sure that when we're older, she'll probably go, you know, maybe find a part-time job nearby. Um, and then my grandparents that came from Italy. So my grandfather, they owned a deli in Astoria for a while. It was called Patsy's Deli because my grandfather's name is Pasquale, so like a nickname. So they owned that deli for a while. And then when they moved to Long Island, they still had it, and then they eventually sold it. And then my grandmother actually worked in the schools. I think she worked with like the Elmont School District. She was in the kitchen, so she would cook and stuff. And then my grandfather ended up going to construction. And I don't know if he owned the business or he like worked with like his brother and his brother-in-law. Like they worked in construction. That's what they did. So yeah, so as you see, like my family, like I don't, you know, my dad didn't go to college either. So like I'm kind of like not like the first, but like, you know, like because I intend on going to graduate school. So no, you know, my aunts, uncles, my parents, no one has a graduate degree. So for me, it's kind of like motivating. Like wow, like you know like I get to get like a degree. Like it's kind of, you know, I want to make them proud. Like my nana always, you know, my grandmother tells me, I want you to get a degree. I want you to get an education. You know, I want you to be something of yourself. You know, that's the reason why we came. I want you. I'll be so proud of you. Like you know, when you get your college degree and stuff. So that's kind of like my family's work background, I guess. So
Yeah,
yeah. So it's It's cool
I
for me.
love it. I love it. And it also kind of goes back to like the overall like big picture theme of the motivation of the Italian American Leadership Network,
Mm-hmm.
because so many of us are the first in our family to do something. Like it could be a bunch of different things, but the first in your family to go to college or go to graduate school
Mm-hmm.
or to do a job that's not like working for a family business or like something like that, where you really have to know kind of navigate all those different things. So by kind of widening your concept of like family and social circle to be like, hey, I'm interested in doing this, or does anyone know anything about starting a business or things like that, by having a community to go to, kind of
Right.
learning from our collective experiences. And I think the stories about like your family and their work is like so interesting, because it also shows like how much like family values are incorporated into the career choices as well. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like, um I mean, I could definitely, I would imagine that like you saw like your father working, and maybe like you or your siblings like worked at the diner a little bit, or like saw people like that you knew working at the diner, or like he had different hours and how that impacted the family, and then your mom was at home and like prioritizing those things, like, oh, like basically I guess what I'm saying is that it's not this like separated thing where just like family is here, work is here. um and that's kind of like I was saying too before about like when I was in the city and at Columbia, it was like for them it was like family is here and work, school is here. But for your family it's like, okay, but like what types of jobs are gonna work for our holistic goals?
Right. Mm-hmm.
um
I agree. No, you're
it's
right.
really really interesting, and it's also interesting that they're all like entrepreneurs too, like the deli side, the diner side, all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then that's another big thing that we're not going to get into it too much today, but just in general, that there's a huge like entrepreneurial culture, historical
Mm-hmm.
culture in our community that I feel like we don't own enough.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like nowadays, I never say nowadays, but
Nowadays.
I'm like making, I never say that. Like I don't know why, but I never say that. But I'm saying it to like accentuate the fact that like kind of like how people view like the past and the present. People talk about like entrepreneurship like a lot now, and it's like kind of like this cool thing to talk about. And I love entrepreneurship, so I'm happy about that. Like as an Italian American, we come from a huge culture of entrepreneurs. Like the
Mm-hmm.
stories that you just said, my mom's family owning a bakery, and they also own like a bridal shop, like seamstress type thing. Like
Oh,
so
that's
there's,
awesome.
yeah, like there's so many examples like that. Um, so it's like as much of it's an acknowledgement that a lot of us are like the first people to do like different types of jobs in our families, it's also really important to be like, yeah, but what could we learn from the businesses that they did have and like those entrepreneurial things? And it might be that I'm thinking of like you in particular. So for you, it might be that like your family had like a deli, and for you, it might be you want to have a podcast. Like it's not the same. I mean, podcasts didn't exist then, so it's not the same thing. But you could be like, you know what? Like I don't have to feel so. It was kind of like what would Nona do? Like I don't have to feel so like scared about this, because like actually people in my family have had their own businesses before, and they have been
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurs before. I have that. That's part of me already, and kind of embracing that, and then whatever you want to do, like modern things that you want to
Right.
do. Um, so
Yes.
that's another topic I'm very passionate about, telling Americans and entrepreneurship. Um,
Yes. Oh, it's
and then
great.
just a few other things. Um, as a Italian American Gen Z
Okay.
college student,
Okay.
what would you say are kind of some challenges that you either are currently going through or you could see potentially going through in the future, as you kind of develop career and work and all of that, that might have be impacted a bit with your Italian American identity and values and all that?
Mhm. Right, yeah, no, good question. I think probably a big thing would be like networking because, you know, in this time, technology is a big thing. So, there's platforms like LinkedIn or, Facebook, like all these different social media platforms where you can connect. And while making those connections allows you to, eventually go on interviews and like that's how you can get jobs that way. So I guess a way that my Italian American background would influence that, I guess, like I said earlier, no one in my family has ever really had to like use those platforms. Like they would network more by mouth and stuff. Like nowadays, you can easily do that online. And also, I guess it goes back to like that superstition, if I'm saying that right. Like, no one's gonna know your business, like that kind of like mentality. So it's almost like I was kind of instilled, like, don't tell no one nothing, like, like, because then they can use it against you. So it's kind of like, like if I'm gonna go on these platforms, like show them my whole resume and everything I've done. It's almost like, but it's gonna be hush hush, So it's kind of like it's different, like I mean, I don't know. I guess no. Like, can you agree with me? I guess like it's almost like like don't tell no one nothing. Like they can like use it against you. So it's kind of like they'll give them a look, the evil eye. So I guess like I just it's so funny this relates because it kind of relates to like development, professional development because like now here I am,
Totally.
what happened?
Totally, yeah.
Yeah, I have LinkedIn. I'm trying to put all my information, like my experience and stuff out there, but maybe my grandparents, they might feel like, no, like they can't know that stuff. Like, no, don't tell people, like that's private, but now the society, it's like you're supposed to, like that's how people are supposed to know you and they can hire you for jobs and you can connect with people that way. So I guess that kind of relates, but yes, it's also like, they're afraid for people to know things about you. But so I guess that could be like a little challenge, like, using these social media platforms and trying to network and put myself out there, I guess that can be a little challenging. I'm sure a lot of other people, feel that way. And that's what's great about this organization, because this will allow us to discuss those fears and, what we're going through, because you're not alone. There's plenty of things that I fear and that I'm scared of, even applying to grad school. I'm going to be the first in my family to do that. I don't know how to do that. So I guess being able to connect with other people who feel that way, it's like, it's nice because you can, empower each other and help each other and we'll get through it. So that's why I love this organization. I think it's great. It's just great.
And I absolutely love what you said about LinkedIn and networking because, I don't think I mentioned it before, like my background and all of that.
Mhm.
Go on my LinkedIn and check it out. But
They just,
but yeah, but the reason why I bring it up is that my background is being a career and brand strategist and teaching those things on the higher education level. And that's why I'm so passionate about this organization, being able to do that, not just with the people who kind of like pay tuition to work with me, but kind of widening that out and like being able to offer those resources to different types of people. But it's so funny how you talked about like, because my whole thing is like, I teach people about like personal branding and all that stuff, but like so much of that is basically how could you put as much of yourself out there as possible, like how could you like document like everything that you're doing to get followers and like all that stuff. And I love the idea of like your grandmother being like, don't tell anybody nothing.
so it's like hard sometimes. Like people are like, what? It's so weird. Like
I
it's strange.
totally
What do you
know.
mean? Like,
Get it. I totally get it. Like my mom was scared to, like now she's fine with it, but at first like she was scared to go on Zoom because she's like people could hack that and like know what you're talking about. I'm like, Mom, I'm not saying you're wrong, but like, what are you having a meeting about? That's like. But I totally get. She's like that idea of like putting yourself out there and
mhm,
like whether it's like pictures, stuff about your career, like whatever, is
right.
the Italian American community is a very like insular community, not just community like the whole community, but like family to family,
Right.
like people to people. It's very
Mm-hmm.
much like don't tell, and like when you just said don't tell anyone anything that could use it against you. Like my mom says that her parents said that, like that exact quote is a
Yeah.
100%. And it's very much, and this is another challenge for Italian Americans with networking, is it very much comes from this place of don't tell anyone anything, they could use it against you. Where
Mm-hmm.
networking is literally like the opposite concept. It's like tell everyone everything about you because it could lead to an opportunity. Like
Right.
it's such a completely different way of looking at stuff. So, and not that Italian Americans from a traditional point of view haven't networked, like you said, like your father networked, but it was often through family or through
Mm-hmm.
very, very close people. um and that's fine, but it limits you to whatever that is. Like if you're not,
Mm-hmm.
you're like, yeah, but I don't want to do things that those people know about.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Italian Americans need to have their own LinkedIn. That needs to be their own on a need to know basis.
So
Well,
funny.
we
Yeah.
haven't, well, for the organization, for the Italian American leadership network, we just started our own private LinkedIn group. And that's something that Christina is working on. And you're just giving me so many like ideas, like for things to post
Yeah,
in
this is great. I'm
the
loving this.
LinkedIn group. I can see people like, oh, like, no, where do you live? Like, what do you do? Like, what's your career? It's like, who's asking? Who wants to know? How's it any of your business? It's like,
Oh
what?
my gosh. I love
I
this.
can see like members being like, oh,
What?
so like, what do you do for a living? It's just like,
Don't worry about it. What
right,
about
right,
you?
right.
My business is not your business. Don't worry about it.
Oh my God, that's
This is
so
great, right? I'm glad we could like be able to like be aware of these like comparisons, Italian LinkedIn, idea of LinkedIn to, society's LinkedIn,
we need to come up with a name for Italian LinkedIn.
what would it be?
Like who's asking.com or something.
Who's asking? I love that. I love that. Who's Kiat.com? Who's asking? Oh, it's so
Don't tell
funny.
anybody about your business.com.
Don't say nothing.
Don't say.
Don't say nothing.com. Oh, this is great. This is good
You have
stuff.
to like
Wow.
you have to like get to know the person before they could see your profile. It's like
Exactly.
little by
Exactly.
little. It's like, do you know
Oh
someone
my
who
god.
knows my friend who knows my friend? Okay, then
Yeah,
you can see
right?
my profile.
If you're not Paisan, that's it. You're not allowed.
Your mom has to approve all of your connections.
It's so true though. Like honestly, it's so true.
Someone like requests to like be on LinkedIn with you, like to, like request to be a connection, but a connection, like the request doesn't go to you, it goes to your mom. It's like oh, your boss wants to be on LinkedIn with you. It's like, how do you know that?
I feel like it has such a similar like because even like with my phone, like like my mom knows my password. Like she like will go. I have nothing to hide, but like she knows all my contacts. Like she'll look through my messages. Like so like so one time my phone was like in the kitchen. I was like in my room and so I guess something popped up and she's like, Christina, like this one texted you. Are you going tomorrow? I'm like, what? Like wait, she already is like
How do you know?
like it's gotta go through her and then it goes through me. But it's so funny. It's so true. It's funny.
It's so funny, but I love that the request goes to your mom. You don't even know it. Like you don't even know. Like no one's like requesting to like me on this platform. It's just like no, they're all just going to your mom. Like you'll find out.
Oh,
She'll let you know if she wants you to know if she approves of them. You'll get like 100 requests, but she'll only tell you about like 5. Like she's gonna Google each one and be like, I don't like these ones. These 5 are fine.
yes.
Oh my
I'm
God.
laughing, but it's something that will probably happen. Like it's so true. We're not even like making this up. Like it's like reality.
No. I don't like this one. I
Oh,
don't know why. I just don't like
yeah,
him.
I don't know.
Oh my God. And then the other thing too, and this really does come up a lot with like getting ready for like interviews or like networking and like applying for things like that. I mean, again, this is like I'm making a generalization, but like Italian American moms tend to like really be like affectionate and like emotional with their kids. So if you're like nervous about like an interview or like something like that, they're gonna be like, you're amazing, you're wonderful, like you don't even like they're gonna love you, like you don't even have to practice for that interview, you're amazing. Like that's not like objective, like that's not like if you don't get hired, it's like they don't know what they're talking about, like you're amazing.
I know, right? It's always
like,
them.
It's like, what's wrong with them? They didn't hire you. Like it's just like this. I mean, it's a great thing because it's like this.
It builds confidence, I guess.
It's like this abundance of confidence,
Mm-hmm.
which is awesome. But I think some people then will be like, well, my mom said I don't have to practice for the interview, so I guess I'm good. It's like, no, you still have to practice for the interview, though. Like, you can't just because your mom would hire you doesn't mean
right.
that you shouldn't practice. So that definitely happens a lot.
Right. I don't know if that comes from like, I don't know, maybe because like, you know, like maybe like it's almost like you're not that you're not allowed to be nervous. It's almost like, well, what do you mean? Like put those feelings aside. Like, no, you're strong. Like, what do you mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? It's almost like, what do you mean you're nervous? You're anxious? Like, no, like you're Italian. You gotta be strong. You know, you got this. It's kind of like, I don't know if it comes from like, you know, that place and it's just, you know, but yeah. It's so funny.
I think it comes from that. And I also think we do come from a culture that like mothers in particular will give their kids compliments. Like there's other cultures that it's very much the opposite. Like they put down their kids a lot and they might think, well, I'm motivating them or something like that. But like my brother, whenever he sees my mom, it's like, you're gorgeous, you're so tall, you're so this, you're so that. He's just like, all right. Like it's just like,
I know. Oh, especially the Italian with their sons, forget it. Oh. But oh my god, but the love though, it comes from a place of love though, like, you know, like that's something that, you know, I don't know, I guess like in Italian culture, like the mothers, like everything, it's almost like that's the center, like they're the rock that glues the family together, you know. And it's, you know, I honestly, you know, it comes from a place of love, and it's great. Like I laugh about it, like, oh my god, like my mom's so like on top of me, but you know what, it's because my mom goes, you know, it's because I care about you, you know, you see these kids on the street, why do you think they're there? She's like, you know, like it's because I care about you. I love you. That's why I tell you these things, you know, whatever, you know. So I get where they're coming from, but it's just so funny when like other people you talk to, like they say the same thing. It's like, oh my god, you understand me? Like I'm not alone, you know. So it's just
and I think I mentioned it to you, but my brother is like really, really into kayaking, and like that's awesome.
Oh yes, you told me. Yeah.
Super into kayak. Also, he's 6'5", so like literally the likelihood of him drowning like almost like can't happen, but like whatever. But she is terrified. She's like, why can't you have another hobby? Why this? And like, I don't understand why there's like anything else you could do. Why this one? And like he loves kayaking, like it's his passion. But like he has to hide it from her because he keeps his kayaks in her garage. So, and he has like the rack. Like that, she calls it like the boathouse, like that's where his kayaks are. So and then he has like the rack on his car, so like if he takes one, like whatever. But she'll be like, where's your brother? Have you seen your brother? Do you know where your brother is? What's going on? And then she's like, there's a kayak missing. Do you think I'm like, she's like, you think my kayak?
The water's probably shallow. It's like probably 4 feet.
And he's like, Mom, I want to take you kayaking. Like this was like we were gonna do it for like her birthday or something like that recently. And he's like, I wanted to. Will you promise to go kayaking with me? I'm like, Mom, I'll go. Like we'll go. And she's like, she's terrified. I'm like, we'll go like next to the water, like I mean right next to the shore. And she's just like, nope, absolutely not. But she will like he'll be missing. Like during the day, and like she's like freaking out, and then. But the thing is, I know that my day is going to get messed up because now I got to deal with her all day freaking out.
She'll guilt you.
Like, all that. She's like, oh my God, you think he's kayaking? Do you know what the weather's going to be? What's going on? Did you help your brother? He's not calling me. Da, 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 da. I'm just like, oh my gosh. And then that actually happened the other day where I saw him and it was like a beautiful day and we were both at her house and this is where the kayaks are and whatever. And, he was so funny. Like he looked out the window. It was a beautiful day. He said something like, the water's calling me, or like the ocean is calling, something like that. It was so funny. Like I knew what that meant. Like I knew that meant like, oh, he's gonna go kayaking.
He's gonna go kayaking.
He like he just like left, like he just left the house, like he didn't say anything, whatever. And then like later on, I saw her. She's like, "Oh, like where'd your brother go? Whatever." And I'm like, "I'm not saying anything because I know if I say something, I have to deal with her all day, freaking out." So I completely.
This is so funny.
And her whole thing, and she's like, he's like, "What is wrong with you?" And her whole thing is, she's like, "I'm from Brooklyn. We don't have kayaks in Brooklyn. Like that's not something we do." She's like, "I had metal detectors in my high school, but we didn't have kayaks. Like that's not something we had."
That's her reasoning. I love it.
She's like, we had concrete. We knew no one was going to drown. We were fine. Oh my God. So I'm just going to wrap up with our last question. So we might have covered some of it already, though.
Yes, yes.
So basically, so I'll kind of put them all together because they're kind of similar. Mm-hmm. So why do you see it being valuable? And you touched upon this already. Why do you see it being valuable for people in the Italian American community to support each other, particularly through this organization? In terms of your own personal life goals, how do you think being Italian American influences your life goals? And how do you think Italian American values can kind of be something that we can use to motivate each other to network and to support each other?
Yeah, no, this is all great. I think that it's important, obviously to build a community of Italian Americans. I think it's like I said earlier, like when you have an understanding with someone, that's like the foundation for like whatever's to come next. Like, for this community, we have tons of people from, doesn't matter what region of Italy you're from, whether it's Puglia, Naples, Sicily, like, it doesn't matter because, we all have like this similar story, that similar experience. Like that's the root of it all. And, of course we share all similar values, like we value the family and, we have similar foods and the food, yes, is obviously very delicious, it's a big thing, but the food, where do you eat food? At a table. And at tables where the family comes together. So those are like strong values. So I feel when we have all these members of the community together, we empower each other because we're like, no, like, like remember your roots, like bring that with you as we together can work together and make something of ourselves. So don't forget like what our ancestors told us, like why they came here. Like we're empowering each other. Like, yes, you can get that support elsewhere, but if they don't understand like where you're coming from, it's harder to kind of like they don't have like that empathy, I guess, towards you because they don't understand, So I guess it's, to empower each other to move forward. We got this. We can be more of ourselves and you can develop professionally and personally as well, but I think, yeah, it's important for, us to, come together and really kind of help each other out in that way. Like all these things that we're talking about, all these stories, I'm sure many other people out there can relate. And, that's why I said you feel comfortable. It's a comfortable, safe environment. Like, share your fears. Like, you might feel afraid to share, like, your fears or what you're ashamed of to people who don't understand. But if you know that, like, someone else can understand, like, you'll be more open about it. And then they can help you, and then you can help them in a different way. And I think it's just great altogether. So.
And with that, I think there's a power, like there's just strength in vulnerability. Like vulnerability is often seen as like a negative thing, but vulnerability can actually be like really powerful, where that's how you connect with people. Like you connect with people when they're vulnerable with you, whether it's like actually in person, one-on-one, like you have that relationship, or it could be someone that you see like a video of being interviewed, but like they're being vulnerable and they're opening up and things like that. Because not only do you learn from whatever they're opening up about, but when you're vulnerable with someone or vice versa, whatever, you then automatically have more of a connection. So that bond is there. So then like your next conversation with them might have absolutely nothing to do with what that other topic was, but you already have like a stronger relationship. And being able to be in a community where you don't have to be as guarded and be more vulnerable, then can take those relationships to the next level. And in this case, you're being vulnerable about your identity and where you come from and your values and challenges and all of that. um yeah, that's really amazing. And then I guess the what I was saying before that was included was just kind of your goals for the future, and kind of how you think your Italian American background impacts kind of what you think your goals. I will say what you think your goals might be, just meaning like kind of like what you think you might want to do.
Right. So yeah, so I'm not like 100% concrete, like, I'm still figuring it out, first year in college, but I guess overall I do see myself working like my life goals altogether. Like I do want a family and I want to be there for my kids as much as I can. Like just how my mom was there all the time. I feel like having my mom like, always there 24/7, I mean not 24/7, but always
Yeah.
there kind of impacts who I am. And I want the same for my children. So I guess if I want to take my work life and my family life, I want them to kind of be able to mesh. So I guess a career in education, because, like the hours are very similar, when my children go to school, and I can be able to, have the best of both worlds. So that's why I guess I always saw myself, like when I was little, I always told my mom, I want to be a teacher because I can be a mom and I can work, obviously no matter what job you have, you can do both. You obviously, you make time, whatever. But I guess for me, I guess seeing my mom like always home, I guess I want to be able to have that lifestyle as well. So I guess that kind of, I guess, influenced like where my decisions came from. So I guess nothing concrete, but I guess that's kind of my mindset is working towards that. It could be something different. It could
Mm-hmm.
be something in there. I don't know yet, but I guess, that's, with networking and connecting, and that's how I can figure it out by taking those chances and putting myself out there, not being as guarded. Like I guess I was always afraid to kind of like talk about like my feelings and maybe like what I feared, what I was nervous about in the job. But now going to college and like seeing I have these resources, and I feel like a little bit more open that I can talk about it. And that's how you get help. If you don't explain to someone like what you feel deep down, you're not gonna be able to get that help, and then you miss out on that chance. So that's what I really love about this network in this organization, that we can help those who maybe were afraid to maybe apply to grad school or start something because they didn't know how, or maybe they felt like, like guarded, like if I say something, I'm gonna look stupid. Like there's no need to
Yeah.
feel, like that in any way, because we all at one point felt like that. So I
Right.
guess in order to move up and to grow professionally and personally, you have to, let it all out, be open and get the help, and we're all in this together. So
Yeah, and I
yeah.
love what you just said. Like at some point, we've all been in that place,
Hmm.
and the reason why that stands out to me is that like there's different Italian Americans are kind of at different stages of things. So, for
Hmm.
example, you might be someone that like maybe let's say you're in your 40s or 50s or 60s or 70s, um, meaning that like you like figured out your career, like you're set with that.
Right.
um and then like from the outside looking in, it might be like, oh, like they really have their act together or whatever, but they might be like, no, like it was like not, and still struggling with it, but also it was, these are the things that I went through, and
Hmm.
I understand what like you are now going through. Or um maybe their parents went through something that maybe like they're not the children of an immigrant, but like their parents are immigrants, and this is the idea of like at some point someone in their family has gone through something that someone in your family has gone through.
Right.
So even if it was like different years and things like that, and they're at a different place in their career trajectory, that there is that like being able to have those types of conversations. And what you're saying, what you're talking about, in terms of like being a mom and things like that, I think is a huge conversation. And I think we should definitely have a conversation about that, like on the podcast.
Yes.
Because it's a topic that like I'm so passionate about that I'm
Hmm.
intentionally limiting what I'm saying right now, because I'm like that, like I'll just start the other podcast, right?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, we can go on for
But
another.
I think it's so important because it's kind of like, I'm saying this as someone who works in higher education, and I'm an adjunct for sociology and gender studies and all that, and it's kind of like a like not like I don't say PC, but it's almost like not socially acceptable
Mm-hmm.
for women in particular to say like, I also want, not like and or, but like I want to prioritize family. Like, yes, like I'm interested in like intellectual career goals, but does that mean that I automatically I can't prioritize the family as well? Um, and like I definitely know that like for sure when I was working at Columbia formally, because like I literally worked in career education at Columbia, um, that would like if some like that was just like a very, it doesn't matter if it was a faculty, staff, student, whatever, that would have been a very like un unwelcome thing to say. Like, what do you mean you want to prioritize family? Or like, how do you or if people were like trying to figure like struggling with family, be like, oh, like just get a nanny, like things like that, like just get a
Mm-hmm.
babysitter or whatever.
Yeah,
And it was
exactly.
like that just being kind of like the default answer. It's just like, oh, just become successful financially and get a nanny. And I'm in no way like knocking that. Like I don't want
Mm-hmm.
that to get like misconstrued. That's not what it is. But there's a lot of people and people, particularly in the Italian American community, where it's not like, oh, it would be cool to have a nanny. I can't afford one. That's not even the issue. It's like, no, like that's not what I personally want. Like that's not my goals.
Right.
So for, and this is a situation for men in particular, because I'm so all about like men wanting to be there for their families and taking paternity leave and all that stuff. So like for anyone who's like, I want to put just as much, if not more, energy into my family as I would into my career. That's absolutely something that like the Italian American community in like modern day has to grapple
Mm-hmm.
with so many families now in the United States being like dual income families, because just like living expenses are just so high now compared to not that long ago. And how do you make that all work, and things like that, has a huge clash with the Italian American value system, and not in necessarily even an intentional way, but it's like, well, if cost of living goes up and then everyone's working all the time, then how are you going to prioritize family and like all that stuff? And another conversation that kind of goes with that I'm also really passionate about, that I'm not going to go into right now, and it's a modern thing that has to do with work, is like working remotely or working like flexible jobs, like
Right.
things like that. I mean, the really interesting thing is that so many people now, because of quarantine, kind of got thrown into working from home. And of course, not everyone could do that, and it depends on the type of job you have, but more people than ever. And it's pre-quarantine, I was all about like working from home, working from home, working from home. So for me, it worked out really well. I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah, I
right.
get to see what I'm talking
That's great.
about.
Yeah.
But and the thing is that like, yeah, I'm not saying working from home is for everyone and all of that, but like there's so many modern ways now to either work like part on site, part flexible, or start your own business that's remote, like things like that. That, and again, it's not for everyone,
Mm-hmm.
but for people in particular who are like, I really want to prioritize family, and what options do I have? Okay, like you're saying, like, you know, a teacher, um, and like my mom was a teacher, like I totally get that, but it's like, now are there new ways of considering that? Like if you are someone who works from home and you could make your own hours and things like that, and like maybe even like your spouse works from home, and you both get to see each other and like all that stuff, like it just, and you don't have to commute, like not just like being there, but like commuting and like all that stuff. It just changes kind of what the possibilities are and what's seen as like the way things are supposed to be, which is a particular challenge for the Italian American culture, because how we navigate family and work is
Mm-hmm.
not the way that mainstream America kind of says this is the right way to do
I
things.
agree. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so I'm so happy that you brought that up, because we'll definitely talk about that in a future podcast.
Yeah.
Something I was going to say before, as you were kind of sharing our different stories, is when you said like, you know, I'm sure people out there are could relate to the stuff that we were
Mm-hmm.
talking about. If you are watching this or anything, and anything that we said resonated with you, if you had a similar experience to any of the things that we were saying, please like this and give us
Yes,
a comment. I want to read
please.
those comments.
I want to.
You know we're going to be in there reading those comments. You know, like
Yes.
I'm gonna be taking screenshots, sending them to Christina, and be like, "Oh my God, this happened to me too."
Yes. No,
Yeah,
for sure. Like, please comment, tell us your story. We want to hear about it because it's just beautiful because this is like what happened and we should be able to share. Like, it's so amazing. So, yes, we will definitely read all of them.
yeah.
Yes, that'll be great.
And
Yeah.
like in the comments, like it's going to be me and Christina. So it's like
Yeah.
we're like actually going to be in there. Like, oh my God, this happened. I totally understand.
Yeah.
So definitely, we want this to be a community that's like very interactive.
Hmm.
Um, and you can join the LinkedIn group, which is very much kind of about kind of networking on a professional level, and then also on uh, Instagram and Twitter, which is more kind of like casual and hanging out and all that stuff.
Right.
But yeah, check us out on
Yes.
learn more about us on ItalianAmericanLeadership.com and come say hi to us, and you know that we'll be happy to talk to you.
Oh, please.
Yes.
We're so open. Just feel comfortable. Say hello. Even if you say hi, we love that. Always here to talk.
Yeah,
Always.
and share this with like friends and family, because it's a new organization. It's just like us kind of being our entrepreneurial selves.
Yes.
So the more that you let other people know about this new organization, the more people that we can reach and support. So thank you so much,
Awesome.
Christina. This was amazing. I'm
You're
so
welcome.
I'm so happy. And I'm sure you feel the same way. I can literally
Oh,
talk for hours. Like,
oh, we can talk till tomorrow, honestly. Like,
right,
I love talking to you. This is great. Science is
yeah,
so much fun, you know?
yeah.
It's
Like
great.
I literally am like if it wasn't late, because it's late. Like it's late at this point. Like guys, like there's no sun out. Like it's late now. I'd be like, I would just like order food right now and just
Yeah,
be like,
right. Just keep talking. I don't gotta get up. Just keep talking.
your mom's in the background, like, here's broccoli rabe.
Yeah, I still smell it. I don't know.
I know. She's like, where are you? All right, go have your broccoli rabe. Go have your food, and then we will talk later.
Yes. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.